First things first, I recently broke 100 subscribers. And while I don't really put much stake in numbers, at the same time, I know that gratitude is the attitude that promotes growth. And so I just want to say that I feel absolutely privileged to teach that which I know and have the opportunity to pass on my experiences and my understanding of these things. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time out and having the interest in what I have to say. So let's get into it. This is the lesson that's going to really piece together a lot of what we have learned so far. And we're going to be talking about science versus religion. Most people either lean heavily towards one or the other. The ones who lean towards science only believe pretty much what can be measured, quantified, and seen with their own eyes. While those who lean towards religion tend to ignore a lot of scientific principles and believe things that tend to defy all logic. Science and religion have always tended to be at odds with one another. I've seen atheists talk about wanting to stamp out all religion. And, their argument against religion is always based in science. While those in religion, their argument is always based in religion, the Bible, the Scripture. And I'm here to tell you that both are valid and necessary. Because, wait for it, they're polar opposites of the same thing. Not that you didn't see that coming. I just got a call just now from someone on the caller ID named Emanuel. Hit the wrong number at the right time. What are the odds? Okay, so we've already gone into how the conscious and the subconscious operate and relate to each other. Science relates to the conscious side of the mind, the logical left brain. The scientific mind doesn't like anything that's not logical. And because the conscious mind is projective, science tends to make things more complex than they need to be. The ones who tend to be proclaimed brilliant scientific geniuses are the ones who are mastering very complex formulas and calculations, all in the name of science. Interestingly enough, ceremonial magic is also known as high magic and high science, and tends to attract people who are very left brain and logic oriented. Not so much the other magical traditions and practices, but in ceremonial magic that's certainly the case. Always wanting to analyze things for their experimentation, absorbing tons and tons of information. Read a couple books on ceremonial magic and it'll make your head hurt. And ironically, it's being caught in that left hemisphere of the brain and that logical side that can actually hurt your magical practice. Anytime I find myself doing that, I'm always drawn back to the 7 principles, the 7 hermetic principles, always. It doesn't need to be any more complex than that. Which brings us to religion. Religion relates to the subconscious side of the mind, the right, illogical side of the mind. As we talked about before, the subconscious doesn't use the same language as the conscious side of the mind. It's all about images, symbolism, archetypes, feelings, and emotions. So when the scientific mind argues that the scripture doesn't make any logical sense, they're right. Because it's not meant to. That's not the side of the mind that it's appealing to. As we said, the subconscious is the receptive side of the mind, which is why the simpler it is, the better. So when you're working with sigils in chaos magic and you're told to condense your sigil down into the simplest form you can, well, that's because the simpler it is, the more potent it's going to be. There's no more potent symbol in magic than the circle. Think about it. The conscious side of the mind is projective and expansive, while the subconscious is receptive and contractive. These are the two worlds you're meant to walk between. It's not some realm out there in the great unknown. And now perhaps you can see why I've gone on so long about the need for depolarization, and why I've said that those of non-faith are at an extreme disadvantage, because the magic happens in the middle. Now, everything I've said thus far should make logical sense to you and appeal to the left side of the mind, the conscious side. So that side's taken care of. So what do we need to do to get our faith back so that the right side, the subconscious, has something to work with? Well, we're going to have to believe in Santa Claus again. Remember back when you were a kid and you believed in Santa Claus? And you had the evidence that Santa Claus exists because there was always presents under the tree when you got up. And then the day came when you were told there was no Santa Claus. And things just weren't the same. You were still getting the presents, but everything was a little less exciting, a little more dull. The world seemed a little more disappointing, bland. It lost its magic, and with it, a large portion of your faith. As Scripture says, one needs the faith of a child. And as we discussed before, faith means certainty. To believe in the most illogical things, such as a fat bearded man flying around the world in a sleigh pulled by reindeer, landing on roofs and coming down your chimney, even if you didn't have a chimney, leaving gifts, and taking off again, and doing this around the world all in one night. Not because these things are real to the conscious mind in the physical sense, but because these things are real to the subconscious mind. Images, archetypes, symbolism, properties of the other world that you're trying to get in touch with. And if the subconscious had a motto, it would be, "Keep it simple, stupid." I explained this in the lesson on Praxis, why I frequently use Scripture in my magic and in my rituals. I'll say things such as, "Does God keep His word?" Because that's putting my subconscious on the spot. And see, now there's no reason to doubt. This is how we achieve the faith. Because everything I'm telling you should make logical sense, so we have that side, the conscious side, covered. And then during ritual, while you're performing your magic, you could be reading Scripture and verses, saying things such as, "Ask and ye shall receive," asking if God keeps His word. And now we have the subconscious side covered. So now there shouldn't be any reason to doubt because we have both sides covered. And this is what the magician should strive toward. And you amplify all that with your emotions and your visualizations, and things will happen. Mark my words, things will happen. Now, it's all going to largely depend on what your subconscious core beliefs are and how you were raised. Only you will know that. But it's no different from Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, okay? Archetypes. They're both real and valid in the realm of the subconscious mind. So you want to go with what you were programmed with as a child, preferably, because that's going to be part of your subconscious core beliefs, despite what your conscious mind believes now. And you can feel good about it, okay? You can feel good about this. Because the war of science versus religion, for you at least, is over. Both are valid, necessary, and have their own domain. On a side note, I did encounter some opposition in recording this lesson. At one point, my microphone completely cut out, and come to find out, my mixing board had turned off, which in order to do so, the button in the back had to physically push in order to come all the way back out. Not the weirdest thing I've had happen, but still, make of it what you will, and I'll see you next time. Take care.